This is the last session before the close of play. But I can promise you it will be like the last 10 overs of a 50-over game. It will be interesting, full of action, lot of inputs, and you're going to be listening to an extremely qualified panel which can address queries on this topic called mitigating competition through new markets. I would like to welcome first Rajesh Nahar. He's the CEO and co-founder of cbazaar.com, an online Indian clothing retailer for the South Asian diaspora worldwide, including India. Please, Rajesh, come here while I read more about you. Launched one of the earliest e-commerce ventures from India called chennaibazaar.com in '98 with cash on delivery. Relaunched chennaibazaar.com as an exclusive Indian clothing store named cbazaar.com in 2005. He has built the company without any external support or funding from a 2-member team to a 200-member team by 2012. Give him a big hand on that one. One of the very few successful profit-making e-commerce companies from India. He acquired HomeIndia.com in 2007, a top-end bridal and wedding clothing online store. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rajesh Nahar, and his vision is to create a world-class e-commerce business focused on customer delight on top. Our next panelist, I welcome N. Jagannathan, co-founder and managing director of 4th Dimension Technologies Private Limited. Jagan is a product of Chennai in all ways. Vidya Mandir and then College of Engineering Guindy. Then he did his MBA from IIM Calcutta. After a few years in the industry, he has been an entrepreneur since 1989, where he co-founded 4th Dimension Technologies, which has now grown into one of the most sought after system integration companies. They are into network infrastructure management, remote infrastructure management, facilities management, information security, pretty much all the non-glamorous stuff that goes on behind the IT infrastructure. So Jagan has been an entrepreneur for 23 years and a charter member of TiE as well. So Jagan, welcome. Thank you for being here. Our third panelist, we'll wait for him and then I'll read out about him because he's the guy who's currently hijacked by ET Now for an interview. So I'll take my seat here and set the context. See, this topic is about mitigating competition, new markets and otherwise. And this is a kind of a dream mantra for any entrepreneur. How many of you here are entrepreneurs? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, looks like a fairly large percentage. And even if you're not an entrepreneur and if you're working for somebody else, I think competition is one of the biggest headaches for everybody. And if there is a way we can learn from others in terms of how to mitigate competition, how to get into, you must have heard of the blue ocean and red ocean. So how do we seek out blue ocean for our own products and services? If somebody had a mantra for it, all of us would pay $1 million for it, I'm sure, right? So, but what we can do best is to share our experiences and perspectives on given a product or a service, how do you map the landscape in terms of competitiveness? Where do you seek differentiators for your product or service? And how do you work out a strategy to go after it? It's one thing to know that there is this market. For instance, for a product that we have built, we may find that there is a tremendous market in Rwanda in Africa. They are going for a new pension solution and I have a solution for it. But how do we access that market? That becomes the next point. So we will cover all this and more topics. My request to the audience is that instead of making this like a one-way street where we are exposing pearls of wisdom from our experiences, I would like all of you to participate actively, maybe bring up situations in your own work life, and there might be parallels between what some of us have done and what the challenge you are facing is. So without much further ado, what the format that we have, that I'll request each of the panel members to spend about between 3 and 5 minutes giving an overview of their business and kind of mapping that to the context of the session. So after the airtime of 5 minutes each, you know where each one is coming from, and then it becomes much easier for you to throw questions at the specific individual or the group, as the case may be. So I now request Rajesh to take the mic and give us an overview, all of us, an overview of your journey, your business, and in the context of today's theme. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Balraman. Good evening, all of you. I'm Rajesh Nahar, co-founder of cbazaar.com. We sell Indian ethnic fashion to the world. So, I started this in 1998, but it's when 2005 is when exactly we spinned off as cbazaar.com. So basically, when I heard about this topic of how do we mitigate competition, I think as a business or as an entrepreneur, you should not wait for competition to come up to you, right? The way we should look at is, okay, as a business, how exactly you could keep evolving your business, your strategies, your thought process, your operating procedures, such that you are ahead of others. You should think 2-3 steps ahead of others. So the way we look at this particular the journey of CBazaar, what we had done was first we introduced the categories what we are selling, which is ethnic wear. The innovation what we did was basically how exactly a customer, when he buys a product, he could get it exactly designed and made per measurement, which means a customer can give the measurements entirely to us on the website, and we made the clothes as per the measurements. This was the first innovation what we had done. And while we had various others looking at us, okay, this is the category what CBazaar is selling, we were a step ahead in terms of offering this particular made-to-measure service. So before a competition comes up, you look at, one is expanding into your service, into your product line, and second, you look at how exactly you can acquire new customers by understanding their pain point and addressing to their pain point. So this is the format what I would like to take this particular session forward. And as you have questions, we'll be able to go deeper into the strategies what we have followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. And we now welcome the third panel member to this forum, Mithun Sajeti. He is a Chief Executive Officer, Carrot Lane Private Limited, India's largest online diamond and diamond jewelry portal. Laid the foundation for his dream company with a vision of changing the way diamonds and solitaires are bought in India. Hailing from a family who has been in the solitaire business for 5 generations, Mithun has a profound understanding of the sparkling world of priceless jewel. He worked with Jaipur Gems for over 10 years, and with a strategic vision, he successfully expanded the business to South India, especially Chennai and Coimbatore. Mithun decided to bring about a new stir in the Indian diamond industry with Carrot Lane, which he set up in the year 2008. As a testament to his excellent leadership and business acumen, Carrot Lane has achieved phenomenal growth year on year under supervision. It has also been rated as one of the top 20 e-commerce startups with the best user interface in India by a DataQuest study done in January 2011. Mithun is a graduate gemologist from GIA, which I believe is in California, and an alumnus of IIM Bangalore. He was a director at Jaipur Gems from 2000 to 2010. Currently, he is the CEO at Carrot Lane. Mithun, welcome. And the next overview of the business, their business, how the theme applies, I would request Jagan to take the mic and spend about 3 to 5 minutes talking about it.
Thank you, Bala. Good evening to all of you. As Bala was mentioning, we are pretty much in the brick and mortar business. We've been in business for a fairly long time. But what we essentially provide is to make sure that the primary infrastructure for the IT infrastructure for most of these online businesses are available all the time. So our job is to make sure the lights are on all the time. So that's our primary business. Our business, if you look at it, this industry has been an extremely competitive industry right through. And for a long part of our journey, we've been predominantly a domestic player. And the kind of competition that we've had has been from various quarters, be it the large integrators. You have the on the one hand you have the TCSs and the Infosys and the HCLs of the world, and the other end you have the resellers of the. So you have an entire gamut of competition that we face. In spite of the fact that you try and position yourself in the right markets at the right place, but this is a fact of life, and this is something we had to live with. In the last few years, we've been making an attempt to look at the international markets, and given the fact that we are a self-funded organization, but not necessarily with deep pockets, getting to the right customer was always a challenge. So we took a very interesting path to address that market through the partnership route. Maybe as we move along, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. And that's something which we found to be extremely successful.
The problem is that if you make an average margin of a healthy margin of, let's say, 20% on it, it takes you about 4 years by the time you can open the next store. So organically, if I had to have 10 stores, I would be 55 by then. And that problem always bothered me. Of course, the other option was to go out and borrow money, and that was just not the DNA that we had at that point. And the family wouldn't agree to it as well. So, having been in Chennai for about 6 years at that point, the auto industry fascinated me tremendously. I just couldn't understand if auto guys could build cars just in time with 50 vendors and 100 vendors, why could we stupid jewelers not build jewelry just in time with everything under our control? And if in theory, on paper, that made a lot of sense. It meant that if we could do that, our inventory turn, which was 2 at that point, could dramatically become 10, 12 or 15. And on a financial model, that would mean that my return on capital would become 100% every year on year as such. And if I could do that, we would reinvent the way the jewelry industry is run, essentially as such. So in theory, that was the thought process, and that's what we thought that we should go out there. To solve that, of course, we came up with different permutation combination. We said we should enter through solitaires because it was the least spoken about business. There is, frankly, no reason for a jewelry store to open in any city because there are 4,000 already in every city in India. So 4,001, really you need some very compelling reason to come out there and say that, hi, I'm going to open a store in Usman Road and compete with, all the really big guys over there as well. So we found our own niche through coming out there and building a whole new model and focusing on a product category which others were not focusing on as a starting point itself over there. Build our market into that, and then use that as a lever to go into every other category there is in the jewelry space itself. So, competition has always been there for us, will always be there. There are, last known, I think the jewelry industry alone has a census of about 250,000 jewelry stores registered with them. These are number of stores, so you can imagine the number of people working in the industry itself. It's 4% of the GDP. So I think we don't really, I think if there was no competition, I think we would all be a lot more complacent about it as well. It helps us, not only does it keep the interests of the customer always at the heart of it, but it also ensures that there's enough motivation to go out there and build something interesting and new all the time as well for us. So, and that's how we've been working on at CaratLane.
Thank you, Mithun. So one common thread that you saw across all of them is that they are all not necessarily in a new product category or in a new market, right? So they are all in industries where there is competition, and if at all, more than you need, in each one of them, in clothing, IT, infrastructure, as well as diamonds. So, but the fact is they're here, they're successful, and they've done something to basically address the core of the theme of today's topic, and that's why they're here. I think they make excellent panel for this particular topic. Before throwing the floor open to the to questions from the audience, I just thought I'll ask a couple of questions, and then we will segue into audience questions. So one of the first thing I had was, there are two ways when you look at mitigating or taking on competition, you either come up with a new product or you take the existing product and create a new market for it. So in both these dimensions, I would like all your thoughts by turn. Maybe Mithun, you can start and give us your perspective on these.
Yeah, so I think an ideal scenario is that you find one of these levers, and an amazing scenario is that you find one of these as a lever and the other one as an acceleration. And so in our case, at least we focused on that. We found that there were two weak links in the Indian jewelry business. The businesses were designed to take care of the mothers who would come to shop. The businesses were not designed to take care of the daughter who was coming along with her. And so that from a market sizing, from a market perspective, we felt that that was unique opportunity that existed. We felt that the gap between the way the mother saw jewelry and way the daughter saw jewelry was radical. Not so much, I would say, in South India, but very, very strong in North India. Very, very, because in South India, in general, education levels are very high. In North India, that was not the case. So the daughter tended to be having a lot more education, and as compared to what was prevailing at that point over there. So the choices that she was going to make was going to be very different from the choices her mother was making as such. So we were able to pit ourselves as the alternative to that, and that allowed us to arrive at a position over there. And then the product category that we chose, which was solitaire and everyday jewelry, both of these became the acceleration point for us because they were not in abundant supply available in the offline market as such, because that focused more on bridal. If you recollect any of the jewelry ads, especially if anyone's been to Chennai and watched a movie over here, I mean, it starts off with Sarvara stores having a fantastic foreign model selling wedding jewelry to I don't know, everyone is selling wedding jewelry. So nobody else really focuses on everyday as a category. And so there was a category which was waiting to be discovered, and we caught on to the right thing at the right point. I think that lever is just as important as having a business itself. And we still feel we haven't communicated it as well as we possibly should. We would love to do an Indigo's take on-time performance on that part. We haven't arrived at it, but we do hope that the message is seeping through, and over a period of time we'll get there as well.
See, our business, the primary challenges were the fact that the differentiation was very little. Okay, a very crowded market, a lot of players in the market, and to be able to differentiate yourself from the rest of the pack was a huge challenge. So one thing that we took on ourselves is, one was, in our business, skills was very, very crucial. In the infrastructure space, unlike the software space, not only is skill important, you also need a lot of ability to manage your client well, because by nature, every individual in the system interacts with the client. Unlike in the software industry where you don't have all of them interacting with the client. So that was one challenge which we addressed in terms of making sure that we have the right attitude in terms of being able to address it. The other thing is, in terms of when we went into the international market, frankly, we had no clue initially about where the market was. I mean, everybody and anybody was a market. So what we decided is to take the partnership route. There were a lot of established players in the respective geographies who had a client base, but they were not offering, they were offering software services, but not infrastructure-led services. So we consciously started working on those partnerships so that we didn't have to go and look for customers. We had potential customers available in front of us, and all we had to do was to present our capabilities, and that's worked extremely well for us. The other model that we embarked on was, given our infrastructure practice, we have a strong relationship with vendors like the IBMs and the Ciscos and the EMCs and whatnot. And they have an extremely solid partnership network across the world. So at least from that perspective, we have access to this network, which we capitalize on. So that's something that we did. But one of the key things we had to address was competition could come from any quarters for us. I mean, this is true probably for any business. Normally, we would expect that companies similar to us would be competitors to us, or larger and smaller. But you had telecom, we had a whole lot of other people who you probably never thought would enter into your field was your competition. But this partnership route helped for us because our partners had a fair amount of customer control. And to that extent, our ability to go and mine into a new customer market was probably not there for us. That's the point we had to see.
So our business has a lot of parallels with what just Mithun said now. Basically, when we entered into the United States as a market, typically our consumers were consuming or buying Indian ethnic products fundamentally from the offline stores. And most of the stores were just focusing on wedding. But when we entered in the market, we realized that there are a lot of occasions, like every month there is a specific occasion for which customers would like to connect back to their roots, and for every event they would like to wear something traditional, like whether it is a sari or a kurta pajama or a salwar suit. So what we went ahead was, we said, okay, while everyone is talking about wedding, there is a wonderful opportunity for being a leader in the space of party wear, ethnic wear. So we introduced a price point which exactly customers were just comfortable, very comfortable buying, even if they didn't have an occasion to buy, but they'll just go and buy because of the pure impulse. The other thing what we did to make sure the customers buy more number of times, so basically the objective of a business is you acquire a customer, you make a customer to buy a number of times, and also you add new customers as well. So adding new customers, the way we went about doing that is basically we started first targeting people who were party goers, they were Indians, then there was people from the subcontinents, and we also made people who are non-Indians to buy Indian ethnic wear, right? So this one of the interesting thing what we did was, like if you look at saris, right? We converted a traditional sari into a garment or into a dress which can be worn within 30 seconds. So a lot of people who are actually not from India or not even from the subcontinent, they are buying our products just like a dress which they could flaunt in any party or any occasions. So instead of just selling a product, we said, okay, let's sell the entire look, let's sell the entire ensemble. So anyone who is going for a specific occasion, they need everything right from, say, the jewelry, the dress, the footwear, the handbag, everything we created like an ensemble, and the entire look was sold to a customer. So we realized that a user, when he or she is going for a wedding, she may want to dress up to the wedding based on whose wedding she is going to attend, right? So that way we created a lot of occasions which were apparently existing in the minds of customers, but which was not spoken loudly, and we started speaking loudly on that. Like if you log on to C-Bazaar today, you'll notice there is an interesting collection which our designers have launched. It's something called Mother and Daughter Collection. So all the mothers who have young daughters, like 5 years, 6 years, or right from 2 years to a teen, you can find an interesting dress combination which a mother and daughter together can wear for an occasion. And it's very cute. You'll really find it very different and interesting. So that's the way we go about creating an opportunity for an existing customer to buy more, and also to make sure that customer speaks to others and organically bring back a lot of virality and more customer through word of mouth. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was a pretty useful perspective from 3 different businesses, but a lot of commonalities. So, if the audience is ready with some queries, if you can raise your hand, I'll make note of it and give it to you by turns. If you can just announce your name and what you do, and then address a question to a specific individual if you want to, that would be great.
I launched this portal. It's 15 months. I can't say that I can't make inroads. My everyday hits around 20 new customers, and my average run rate is 400 customers a year. I don't have a big marketing budget. I'm not pursuing to any angel funding or venture capitalists. Being a forum, I just waited for you from the morning that, how can I take this to the next level? I don't have any blood. I simply don't know anything apart from 92.5 sterling silver, or I know certain manufacturing. I go sit with them, make them. This is what I want. I take a customized jewelry. They say that this goes in this. I get this certified. I do it personally. I've been doing it for 15 months now. I've done silver coins. I've done gold coins. I've done Dhanteras for corporate customers. But I've been last with Cognizant. I'm coming from the hardware infrastructure and services side, making remote infrastructure management for AstraZeneca like customers, which is 100 million old. So for me into this blood, and I have another e-commerce portal called wellness.in, which is my blood because I'm in health IT. So that's the baby for me. But then now the family members are coming and see, this guy has started, there's a lot of things. So I just want you have suggestions in terms of looking at the roadmap, because one thing is that I am successful in some sale, not that distinct sale which can give me bread and butter. At the same time, I don't want to shut it down because I see my blessings coming from my forefathers, and I still pray on a daily basis that after your brand, I've taken a 100-year brand and building a brand, because I know IT. I can do an e-commerce site in a Magento or a UI-based engineering, but I just wanted to see if there is any opportunity for me to scale it up, or because I don't have any bandwidth or the money to build it, because he's been in this. That's the question. I'm sorry to have few minutes of my brief introduction, but to add to that, actually I was surprised that I submitted my next big online idea to NDTV.
All right. Okay. First thing, I think focus is like the single biggest thing. You sound very diverse and focused, on this. I don't know, but I really think that I have no answer in like 30 seconds to give you for it, but I would love to invite you. Come over for lunch. We'll talk over it. Come to Carrot Lane, and I can tell you at least 100 jewelers have come to Carrot Lane, taken a whole tour of it. We'll help many of them build, because see, there's one thing about competition is that at different stages of business it becomes competition. At different stages of business it becomes collaboration. And when you start off early enough in business, this is collaboration. It doesn't become competition because you're market making. Market making is still going on the online side of the business itself. So I definitely don't think that every other guy who's doing online jewelry is competing alone with us. But a jewelry shop is like a sitting duck. You're like waiting over there. The customer is going to walk in, and only when he walks in can you start doing. But for all other categories, decisions are reasonably made well beforehand itself. So as more online happens, more we'll be able to compete with those categories as well on that part. So I'll be happy to talk to you about it, and come visit us. And we're in Khadar Nawaz Khan Road, not very far from here as well. And we have Ty is aware of this. We have an incubation center opening up over there. We have a whole floor dedicated to any new business coming up over there as well. So you're more than welcome to come and spend time with us.
Thanks a lot.
Recently, I had a consulting assignment with one of the, basically on the, the name of the portal is eShakti.com. And then I started looking at this dress as a commodity in e-commerce, and then I saw that the potential of the market is around $44 billion in US. And 26 of that goes to women apparels. And I found that there are very few players in custom clothing. Okay, like for example, I want a long dress, short dress, and eShakti is maybe doing around 30 million or something, and they got like Series B funding as well. So when are you looking at that space rather than mom and because when I did, I came across a portal as well where mom and daughter you are trying to sell, but this is a new segment altogether. And especially, I also have the same problems when I look at. I have two daughters. When I look at their birthday dresses, it's always a pain for me going to every store and my wife is not satisfied. And my daughter is now giving feedback like it's not good. Okay, so I don't know. Like we are looking at a custom design at an affordable price and at a custom built dresses, especially for women. They're the most choosy. Okay, so are you looking at that space, because that's a really good space to get in.
Yeah. So. I know eShakti, and I think eShakti and C-Bazaar, they've been existing for so many years. I think eShakti is into Western wear, targeting the mainstream Americans, and we are into the Indian wear, targeting to the people of the Indian subcontinent living outside India. So that there is a category differentiation clear cut. But to answer to your question for your daughters, I think I have a very interesting, I think I have acquired a customer now. So, so we have, this is something which I missed to, point out in my earlier communication. We have something called DIY, design it yourself. So this is a designer-led approach. Customer can interact with the designer through video conferencing. Along with the designer, could contribute in the design process. So once the designer and the customer freeze out on a particular design, it's not only the design, the fabric, the occasion for which the dress is going to be designed and how we want it and all that. Then we go about constructing the garment. So we are actually in the B2C, but every single customer we look at like a B2B customer, which means we make sure that every single component of the dress is perfectly designed, perfectly constructed as to the needs of the customer so that the customer looks beautiful. When the customer is wearing the dress, we want people to ask them, where did you buy this dress? You're looking amazing. So in that context, we have that service called DIY available, and we fundamentally target people who are, one is brides and for bridesmaid dresses, or families who have a wedding in the family. So I think for your daughters we'll be able to design dresses. Thank you.
First, I'd like to say that the latest ad of CaratLane is very good. And perfect day to launch that ad. Secondly, it's an expensive thing, right? Solitaires. When you go to a jeweler, he explains you the fee and this fee and that fee and everything. But when you do it online, now to customers, how do they understand or how do they ensure it's right, or how does it go about? Because I know some of my friends, they like, of course it's a credible place to buy, but still there is always an apprehension, right? So how do you take care of that?
Yeah, that's the problem, right? If that wasn't there, I would be like a billionaire by now. It's you chip away at this every day, and every day you function on every single problem and try and do it. So when we started up, we were a plain vanilla site, listing, nothing else. Second came chat, started speaking to every customer and figuring it out. Third, launched the call center with gemologist on board, trying to do that. Fourth is so each one of these, so let's say if the conversion was about 0.1%, then the next edition of chat made it 0.2, and then the addition of gemologist made 0.25. Then we started something called Try at Home, where a guy comes to your house, explains everything about it, what this jewelry store does essentially, and that made it 0.4. And then now we have stores which open up and explain about solitaires, but still follow the same inventory model where we replicate a solitaire's look and feel, but don't really put the exact solitaire. Because the minute we do that, the price the price parity would have to be dramatically different as well. So that every day you chip away at it, and every single morning you wake up and say, hey, which problem can I solve in it, and how can I do it better, essentially. Oh, absolutely. We're the largest solitaire seller today in the country, even bigger than any offline store. So that problem that you talk about actually is not, we should be 5 times this size when the stores are ready and everything, but the focus on being on a certain part of the business makes it very different. We are not large in any single city, but nationally we become the largest as such, because what internet allows you is that, so if you look at any business, what happens in a jewelry business is that you have a funnel, right? You have a supply, and then you have this one store. Now look at the internet business. You have the supply, and then you have the inverted funnel as well. So the inverted funnel allows you that long distribution. So even if your conversion is going to be low on that part of it, you will still be doing a lot more business than you would land up doing if you were a single source of, a single store itself also. And plus, people are able to browse at their own convenience, don't feel intimidated at all, want to figure it out what's going on in their own world, and have questions, anonymously chat with people as well. When they really get serious about it, then it changes. And to answer your question on that, one stat that might help you validate that is that 40% of people who chat with us make a solitaire purchase. Yeah.
So is that 40% of people who walk into the store buy?
40%, no, I think it'll be about 65% of stores who walk in will buy, because walking into a jewelry store is not an easy job. There's a glass door that you have to cross and you have to walk in. It's not easy. Ask most men how comfortable they are walking into a jewelry store. It's not an easy job at all. We jewelers have done disservice for years. We take the wallet, but we never ask the guy to walk in. You know, so.
When you start up, like Rajesh was saying it, they are given a custom-made design. Earlier it was not there, or it's like offering jewelry on the internet or in the infrastructure side. That initial period, right, when you are resource are limited, everything, the startup point of view, how do you communicate? Something is there for you. How do you start it up? How do you spread the mouth, word of mouth? How does it happen? That way, what challenge, particularly if you're faced, will be helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Rajesh has probably forgotten it's been too far back for him.
I think the only thing I remember, Mithun, was it's Ritesh and me, we are the co-founders and we had to do everything ourselves. So in that way, our first goal was to acquire one customer. We said, okay, we have acquired one customer, now let's acquire another customer. So as we acquired maybe 5-10 customers, we said, how can we make that 5-10 customers to bring more customers to us? So that's how the whole thing started, basically. But I think, Mithun, you should answer to this point, because you're right, I forgot a lot of things what I did in those days.
So the difference is I am from 2009-10 batch, he's from 2000 batch. You know, so there is a time gap on that whole thing. So, I mean, I still remember when we started off with this thing, we did not want to think too much about what others were doing. There was so much noise we had to deal with about Flipkart happening at that point as well. It's now like 100 million and then billion, and then before I understood the word billion, it was 2 billion and then 4 billion, and I don't even know where it is now, right? So I think the more you focus on somebody else's business, the harder it gets to do that. The more you focus on your own business and say, I had 2 customers yesterday and 4 tomorrow and then 8 day after and 16 after that, and you figure out every single customer who gets from you, why he bought from you, and every single customer who didn't buy from you, why he didn't buy from you, the more quality you put into understanding that part as opposed to understanding anything else about the business, the better and faster the business grows at that point. It's hugely imperative to understand why people buy and why people don't buy, both, because those are the pillars on which you make changes to your business. Not really so much about why somebody else does it. There was a gentleman who spoke before us, who was a fantastic speaker, and he spoke so much about being focused on that change that you make, which is going to be relevant for that customer, and not relevant for us in our mind, but relevant for the customer. And you can only get that through those audiences and conversations with those customers.
The new thing which I have an interest in is starting CSR initiatives with organizations, helping them to select which initiative they would go in for. My question is basically, like what I understood was, you had 2, Rajesh and Mithun basically. What I understand is you had a niche market which you could select, which was not there, and that was your plus factor, which gave you a sort of stand-up. Now, when I look into, when anyone tries, when we say, okay, we are going to develop such and such product or such and such service, and when we end up looking, there is someone somewhere already, into that in some way. So it's not like something very new that you're going to come up with, though initially you had in mind, but the moment you start making a business plan, you find out on the internet that, okay, there are people nationally, internationally doing that, and you have a passion for it. So one is, what do you do about that? Do you give it up, or do you search something else? Or like many people have done, they take a simple idea and then they package it so differently, it looks very different, but in the end it's like they're offering what everybody else is doing, but it may be termed as hobby instead of a class. And you're buying time, and they package it very differently. So what would your suggestion be in terms of this? And
I think you have the answer yourself. I mean, your question itself has got the answer. So I think innovation is the key, right? First, you need to find out a gap, right? There are gaps in the industry, every industry. Make sure you are firmly positioned in that gap. And then once you get deeper, you can drill it down and make it wider.
So
there may be people, right? But there may be people there, but it's you can sort of make it work, and you have to think how to be innovative about it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You will find that. That's a very common challenge at every place. Yeah, you're right. We were fortunate. At least I was fortunate because we sold the first sari online, right? Those days nothing existed. But what risk we took was we took the decision that this is what exactly we want to do. So when no one exists, you need to have that particular vision. At the same time, you need to have that focus, saying this is what exactly I want to do. No matter whatever happens, I want to acquire this. So that's it. You have a different challenge when nothing exists. But when things are existing, then you'll have to go with a different strategy.
If somebody else has done it, I'm sure you can do a better job at delivering it as well. Just steal it. I mean, make it seem like you did it first. I was not the first guy to sell jewelry online. I was not the second guy to sell. I was not even the fifth guy to sell jewelry online. But we're the largest by a distance of magnitude of 4 right now. Do it so differently and so well that everybody else has to make notice of what you're doing about it, and be so true to your customer about it that it'll change it as well. Look at the iPod. I mean, Sony invented it, and most people think that Steve Jobs invented it. It's probably the biggest theft that ever happened in this world as well. Theft in a very natural manner. I mean, I'm not saying that he went and stole it or something. He went and spoke to them and said you should make it big. They didn't see value in it, and he went and made something extraordinary out of it as well. So had he thought that there's something out there, so I should not do this thing, I think that whole thought process is archaic. I don't think you should worry about it. Even today in my category, but I don't understand psychology or the category you're in, but I can see another 10 niches like what I am doing where we can build something out there. Maybe it's the thought process. I mean, it's just my risk-taking ability today is greater than probably it was 4 years back on this part, but that visibility will be always there. And the second thing, if you look from a leader's perspective, the two things that worry him the most is the person who's right behind him, because it's like a Formula 1 car. When you're going really fast, the guy who's right behind you doesn't have to worry about the road ahead because the guy in front of him is taking care of that. You're in a slipstream and he can always overtake you the minute you slow down on that path. And the second thing that worries you as well is that some person in the dark is doing something which you have absolutely no idea what's going on over there. These are the two things that worry him, and you could be one of those that is doing something in the dark that's going to completely dismantle what the thought process is over there of the guy who's leading whatever thought process you have on it.
Just to add to that, Lavanya, is the concept of a competitive advantage. It is not a permanent advantage. I mean, that's an opportunity for others, and it is a threat of complacency for the person who's occupying that space. To give you an example, actually there was a category called personal digital assistant, PDAs, and this whole product was brought forth by a company called Palm. And if you've been used to some gadgets and gizmos in the early 90s, Palm was something that people could not live without. It was a PDA calendar, everything. But they never saw the phone convergence with this coming in and completely eliminating them. So they were innovators. They created a new product category. They were by far the biggest. People like HP tried to bring a Windows PDA after that. Never even got to even 10% of palm size. But after 10 years, they were gone. So to what Jagan said, I think sometimes you could be that competition which is coming out of their radar and taking away this market, or you could be the person who's getting eaten into by somebody else just because you were not, or you were complacent about your competitive advantage. So I think it's a very dynamic world, and you've got to constantly innovate to stay ahead.
Sometimes it happens that the item is not demanding, and then you still maintain a huge inventory. Is there a special way that you kind of liquidate? Because at offline we'll see that put on discounts and stuff like that, and your people coming. I'm just asking, because we usually it's a big problem, right? So when you invest some lakhs or crores, it stands by as an inventory. Is there any special measures that you take care to make sure that you get liquidated on that particular stock or particular period?
So I think relevance to our business, because we're in similar business, is that you make one or two investments. Our investment is not in the inventory. Our investment is in the manufacturing setup. So we work thinking our delivery time is the shipping time and work reverse from that. We are not in an inventory model. Only after you place an order, we start manufacturing. So till then, we are a raw material model itself. And so it doesn't impact at least the jewelry business significantly. There is so much for us to learn, I'd say, every day from the auto industry. I mean, you know, there's just amazing. I wish we would learn a lot more and a lot faster.
No, exactly. Even we are into a inventory light business model. But when we started, we had to build inventory because the supply chain never existed. So we invest in technologies which help us to strengthen our supply chain. Just absolutely like what Mithun said on auto industries, we close to about 90% of our transactions are sourced, our products orders are sourced just in time. So we have vendor network across the country, in rural parts of the country, in cities and towns, but we are able to source seamlessly from them. But what we make sure is that there is another value addition layer that is done within C-Bazaar premises. So it's inventory light model what we adopt.
Like you said, IT services is more focused towards competing with existing vendors, especially the large ones. So how do you actually convince those partners to partner with you to offer those services, especially the ones they were not trained or had expertise on initially?
See here, what we did, I will tell you what we did, is we went about identifying those kind of partners who did not have an infrastructure play in their portfolio, right? So to that extent, we were not perceived as competition. We were perceived as somebody who will take away their customer. So, and the other thing is, therefore, it was complementary in nature. Number two, to those partners, it gave them an opportunity to kind of provide those shields around their client. Because if they let somebody else into the they are letting competition into it. So they were able to build barriers around that. That was the other story which worked for us. And we were not telling them that we will take away their customer. The customer continued to be his customer. So they were able to dig deeper into that customer and offer them more services, but we were the service providers to them. That's how it kind of worked for us.
The amount of work done, that small site that we did, it was a challenge that we took up in our office, and we two of us built a site. So
this is US. .com you're talking about.
.com it was there, and we built it to India.
Okay.
And it was closed down soon because of the logistics problem and all. We closed the business office closed the site. So we built it. The technicality is that we were able to build it. The question I'm asking is the innovation you find it so important, right? So you say your IT team is so small and the conversion rate is 40% one way chat. But what is the actual conversion rate per day? If your IT is so less, right? You say you don't actually.
So less in the sense, so less is a relative term. I mean,
No. My question is,
it's still 60 people. I mean, it's not like 5. So.
yeah, it's a good number. My only question is, again, I have to compare with eBay. So when I joined eBay, right? The sale number was 7,000 per day. Okay, we were really happy because we crossed 100%, and we had a gala time, we had dinner treat and all. But now, right, Flipkart does 30,000 sale in an hour on an average day. When they have a sale, they do it in a minute. So
Across all categories you're talking about.
yeah, I'm just saying that's because eBay did not innovate on time, right? So we went down, and we were thinking we were the only profit-making e-commerce site at that time, and we were. But now, right, if you see, we are no more in the top 5 or top 10 as well. So what are you guys doing to make sure that you stay in that top level
and nobody else actually comes and beats you up. So, I mean, Flipkart did to eBay what I was talking about earlier, that somebody came from the dark, you had no idea what's going to hit you, and then came across and built something which was, and a business model which was not something that eBay was ever thinking of doing, loss leading strategy basically on that part. eBay did it in 2000 but never planned for that in India itself also. So that worry is constantly there. When you don't know what's coming at you, you can't plan for it. But what you can do is, there's a very old adage that my grandfather told me, that if you want to be a businessman, you must remember this. There are 3 words that he told us we must always remember. It's in Hindi. I don't know how to translate in Tamil, but I'll say it in Hindi and then I'll say it in English for you. One is nazar, then is khabar, and third is jigar. So a businessman must always have his eyes open for an opportunity, must always has his nazar. Yeah, he must always know every information that's happening in the industry out there, and when the right opportunity comes back, he must have the heart to go out and really bulldoze through that. So if you find an opportunity like that, don't think twice about it. Just go for it at that point. And that's what we look out for every day. I'm sure that's what Rajesh looks out for every day. And the dream really is to find those opportunities and then drive that knife right through it so that you would have dramatically changed something that happens on that part. One point, it's a founder-driven company, right? So a lot of passion which goes into building the organization. Of course, eBay also has founder and all that, but given that that's the magnitude in which eBay has expanded, I don't know how Indian operations of eBay went, but I think that is one key component which is required for any business to, keep growing. Thanks.
So it's 5 o'clock and we come to the end of the display, so to speak. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Rajesh, Jagan and Mithun. I think it's been a fantastically interactive session and I loved every minute of it because I learned a lot as well, especially this online world, which for a lot of us brick and mortar people is completely new. Thank you for being a wonderfully participative audience. I think you've been very thought-provoking in your own questions, and I think that made the whole, the pearls of wisdom come out much faster. So put your hands together and let's thank these panelists today. Thank you.